It was the silence that told me something was wrong. Not the kind of silence you get when someone's busy, but the heavy kind that presses against your chest like a weight. My daughter had missed our Sunday video call for the third week in a row. Each time, a text would come instead. "Sorry, Mom. Crazy day with Marcus's work. Love you." The words were right, but the rhythm was off. Emily had never missed our calls, not during her entire MBA program when she was drowning in case studies. Not when she launched her marketing firm and was working 18-hour days. Not even during the pandemic when the world fell apart and all we had were those pixelated squares on our screens to hold on to each other. But now, silence. I stood in my Seattle apartment, looking out at the rain-soaked streets, my phone still in my hand. The text glowed on the screen, and I read it again, searching for something I couldn't name. My daughter's words, but not her voice. Her emoji, but not her warmth. I'm a retired judge. For 30 years, I sat in courtrooms watching people lie. You develop instincts about these things. The pause before an answer, the way eyes shift to the left, the over-explanation of simple things. Emily's texts had all three. Something was wrong. I called my longtime colleague, David Park, who still practiced criminal defense in the Bay Area. "I need you to check on someone for me," I said without preamble, quietly, just a wellness check. "Who?" he asked, and I could hear the concern in his voice. David had known Emily since she was born. "My daughter." There was a beat of silence. "Sarah, what's going on?" "I don't know yet," I admitted. "That's the problem." 2 days later, David called me back. His voice was careful, measured. I drove by the house. There was a catering truck outside. Looked like they were setting up for some kind of event. I saw Emily briefly through the window. He paused. "Sarah." She looked tired. Really tired. But she waved when she saw me, smiled. Marcus came out, very friendly, said they were hosting a tech investors' dinner. Everything seemed fine. Everything seemed fine. The three most dangerous words in the English language. "But?" I prompted, because I could hear the unspoken word hanging in the air. "But I've known Emily her whole life," David said quietly. And that smile didn't reach her eyes. I booked a flight that night. The decision to move to Seattle 2 years ago had made sense at the time. My cardiologist had recommended the climate, the slower pace after my heart attack. Emily had just gotten engaged, was planning a wedding, building her business. She'd been happy when I told her about the move, had even helped me find the apartment, visited twice before COVID lockdowns trapped us all in our separate corners of the world. We'd done the Zoom wedding, me in my Seattle living room, watching my daughter marry a man I'd only met 3 times. Marcus Harrington, 35, tech entrepreneur, Stanford MBA, founder of some AI analytics startup that had just secured Series B funding. On paper, he was perfect. Successful, ambitious, came from old San Francisco money. Emily had been glowing when she introduced us, talking about their shared vision for disrupting the marketing analytics space. I'd wanted to like him. I'd tried to like him. But there was something in the way he touched Emily during that video call, his hand on her shoulder just a bit too firm, the way he answered questions I'd directed at her. Small things, judge instinct things. But Emily was happy, and I was recovering, and the world was on fire, and I told myself I was being paranoid. The mansion had been my father's gift to Emily, transferred into her name when she turned 25. $6.5 million of San Francisco real estate, a modern glass and steel structure in Pacific Heights with views of the Golden Gate Bridge. My father, a semiconductor engineer who'd struck it rich in the first dot-com boom, had always believed in setting up his granddaughter for success. Strong, independent woman, he'd say, tapping the legal documents. Her name only. No one else's. Marcus had moved in after the wedding. "It makes sense," Emily had said during one of our early pandemic calls. "My place is bigger, closer to his office. We can build the business from here." I hadn't argued. What was I going to say? That I didn't like how he called her babe in that particular tone? That I noticed how he steered the conversation every time she started talking about her own clients? Now, Standing in San Francisco International Airport with my carry-on, I wished I had. The Uber dropped me off 3 houses down. I didn't want the driver pulling up to the front gate, didn't want anyone alerting Marcus to my arrival. My hands were shaking as I paid the fare, and it wasn't just from the flight. It was anticipation, fear, the same feeling I used to get before delivering a verdict in a major case. I walked slowly toward the house, taking in details. The front gardens were immaculate, professionally maintained. The Tesla was in the driveway, next to a new Mercedes. Everything looked perfect from the outside. Beautiful, successful, the kind of house you see in magazines about tech, wealth, and American dreams. I still had my key. Emily had given it to me when she first moved in, back when she was 25 and wanted her mom to be able to water the plants when she traveled for business. I'd offered to return it when Marcus moved in, but Emily had laughed it off. "Mom, don't be silly. You'll always have a key to my house." My house, not our house. I held on to that as I slipped the key into the lock. The door opened silently. Expensive hinges, no creaking. The entryway was dark, all the curtains drawn despite it being 2 in the afternoon. I could hear sounds from deeper in the house. Running water. The soft clink of dishes. I moved quietly through the hallway, my legal training kicking in. Observe before acting. Gather evidence. Don't let emotion cloud judgment. The living room was exactly as I remembered it, except darker. The floor-to-ceiling windows that had once showcased that million-dollar view were covered with heavy drapes. The furniture was different too, where Emily had favored light, modern pieces. Everything now was heavy, traditional, masculine. Dark leather sofas, a massive desk in the corner. And there, on her hands and knees in front of that desk, was my daughter. She was scrubbing the hardwood floor with a brush, a bucket of soapy water beside her. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she wore a gray dress that looked more like a uniform than clothing. Her shoulders were hunched forward, her movements mechanical, automatic. I must have made a sound, because she looked up. For a moment, neither of us moved. Her face went through a series of expressions. Shock, fear, confusion, and then something that broke my heart. Hope, quickly buried beneath anxiety. "Mom?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I crossed the room in 3 steps and pulled her up from the floor. She was lighter than I remembered, thinner. I could feel her bones through the dress. "Emily," I said, and my voice cracked. "What is this? What's happening?" She pulled away gently, glancing toward the hallway. "You can't be here," she said urgently. "Marcus is in a meeting upstairs. He'll be down any minute." "I don't care about Marcus. Talk to me." "There's nothing to talk about." She bent down to pick up the brush, but I caught her wrist. That's when I saw them. Faint bruises, yellowing at the edges, circling her forearm like fingerprints. "Emily." I made her look at me. "How long has this been going on?" "It's not what you think." The words came out too fast, too practiced. "I'm just helping with the house. Marcus has been under so much stress with the company, and I wanted to—" "Where's your company?" I cut her off. "Where's your business?" She looked away. We merged operations. It made more sense for me to support Marcus's growth trajectory. The market analytics space was getting too crowded anyway. Every word sounded like it had been fed to her, rehearsed, memorized. "Let me see your phone," I said. "Mom, your phone." "Emily." She hesitated, then pulled it from her pocket. I noticed immediately that it was a different model from the last time I'd seen it. When I opened it, I understood why. Every app was monitored. Every text, every call, every email, routed through something called Our Family Manager, a tracking app, a control app. "He can see everything I do," she whispered. "If I don't respond to his texts within 5 minutes, I get a reminder. If I'm not where I say I'll be, it alerts him. It's supposed to be for safety." "This isn't safety," I said. "This is imprisonment." "You don't understand." She was shaking now. "The business, it's all in his name now. The bank accounts. Even this house, he had me sign some papers after the wedding, said it was for tax purposes, for—" "You signed over the house?" The house my father had put in her name specifically to protect her? She nodded, tears starting to fall. He said married couples should have everything joint, that it showed I trusted him, that I was being paranoid and controlling if I didn't. When did you stop working with your own clients? 6 months ago. Marcus said they were distracting me from supporting his vision, that a wife should be her husband's partner, not his competitor. And the bruises? She pulled her arm away. It's not like that. He just gets frustrated sometimes when I don't understand his business pressures, when I don't do things right. It's my fault, really. I should be better at… Stop. I took her face in my hands. Listen to me. None of this is your fault. You hear me? None of it. Footsteps sounded from upstairs. Heavy, deliberate. Emily's whole body went rigid. Please, she whispered. Please, just go. If he finds you here, if he thinks I called you… You didn't call me. I came on my own. He won't believe that. Please, Mom. But I didn't move. I stood there, in my daughter's living room, the room that should have been filled with light, and her laughter, and her dreams, and I waited. Marcus Harrington appeared in the doorway. He was exactly as I remembered. Tall, well-dressed in expensive casual wear, the kind of handsome that came from good genetics and better skincare. His smile was practiced, but his eyes were cold. Sarah, he said warmly, as if my unannounced appearance was perfectly normal. What a wonderful surprise. Emily, why didn't you tell me your mother was visiting? I watched Emily scramble for an answer, watched the fear flash across her face, and something hardened in my chest. I didn't tell her, I said evenly. I wanted to surprise my daughter. Is that a problem? Of course not. His smile never wavered. Though a call would have been nice, we could have prepared properly, maybe pushed back some meetings. He moved into the room, and I noticed how Emily unconsciously stepped back. We're actually hosting an important dinner tonight. Series C investors. Big night for the company. Your company, I corrected. Not Emily's. A flash of something crossed his face. Annoyance, maybe, but he recovered quickly. Our company. Marriage is a partnership, Sarah. Surely you understand that. I understand a lot of things, I said. I understand that my daughter used to call me every Sunday. I understand that she had her own business, her own clients, her own life. I understand that this house was put in her name, and her name only, by her grandfather. Mom, Emily said quietly, warning in her voice. But Marcus laughed. Is that what this is about? You're worried about property rights? Emily and I are married. What's hers is mine, what's mine is hers. That's how marriage works. That's not how this marriage was supposed to work. Well, things change. His tone hardened slightly. Emily's old business model wasn't sustainable. She was working herself to death, barely making the margins she needed. I offered her a better path. By making her scrub floors? She wasn't scrubbing floors, he said smoothly. She was spot cleaning where the caterers spilled earlier. Emily likes things perfect for our events, don't you, babe? He looked at Emily, and I saw her nod automatically. Conditioned response. I'd like to speak with my daughter, I said, alone. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Marcus checked his watch, an expensive Rolex. Like I said, we have an important evening ahead. Emily needs to finish preparations, and I have calls to make. Perhaps you could come back tomorrow? We could do lunch, all three of us. I'm not leaving. His smile finally dropped. Excuse me? I said, I'm not leaving, not until I talk to my daughter. Alone. Sarah, I don't know what Emily has told you, but she hasn't told me anything. She doesn't need to. I can see it. See what? Exactly? His voice was ice now. The fear, the control, the bruises on her arm. Emily made a small sound, and Marcus's head snapped toward her. You showed her? I saw them myself, I said, when I grabbed her wrist to help her up from the floor, where she was scrubbing, on her hands and knees, in her own house. This is ridiculous. Marcus pulled out his phone. I think you should leave before I call security. Security? I almost laughed. This is my daughter's house. I have a key. You call anyone you want, but I'm not moving. We stood there, locked in a staring contest. I'd faced down career criminals in courtrooms. I'd delivered life sentences to men who'd tried to intimidate me. Marcus Harrington, with his startup money and his tech bro arrogance, didn't scare me. What scared me was the look on my daughter's face. The defeat, the resignation. Fine, Marcus said finally. You want to talk? Talk. I'll be in my office. Emily, we'll discuss this later. The way he said discuss made my skin crawl. He left, and I waited until I heard his office door close upstairs before I turned to Emily. We're leaving, I said. Right now. Pack a bag, we're going to a hotel. I can't. Yes, you can. No, Mom, you don't understand. She was crying now, really crying. If I leave, he'll destroy everything. He has lawyers, he has money, he has all the documents showing I willingly transferred everything to him. He'll make it look like I'm unstable, like I abandoned the marriage. He has screenshots of texts where I said I loved supporting his work, where I agreed to the asset transfers. He's been building a case for months. A case for what? For taking everything if I try to leave. The house, the money, my reputation. He's connected in the tech world, Mom. He told me if I ever tried to walk away, he'd make sure I never worked in marketing again. That everyone would know I was an unreliable partner who sabotaged her husband's success. Emily, that's abuse. That's coercion. Any judge would see through it. Would they? She looked at me with hollow eyes. Or would they see a successful entrepreneur married to a woman who gave up her struggling business to support his company, who agreed to joint finances, who hosted his events and smiled for his investors, and never once complained publicly? I realized she was right. Marcus had been smart. He'd built a perfect facade, and he'd been doing it systematically, for 2 years, while I was 1,000 miles away recovering from a heart attack. But he'd made one mistake. He didn't know that before I moved to Seattle, before the wedding, I'd visited this house. Emily had given me the full tour, excited about her new home, her inheritance, her future, and I'd done something she didn't know about. I'd installed security cameras. Small, discreet ones, hidden in smoke detectors and electrical outlets. Not because I didn't trust Emily, but because I was a judge, and I'd seen too many cases of beautiful houses in beautiful neighborhoods where terrible things happened behind closed doors. Call it paranoia. Call it professional hazard. I'd told myself I'd remove them after the first year, once I knew Emily was settled and safe. I'd never removed them. And more importantly, I'd never told Marcus they existed. Does he check this house for cameras? I asked quietly. Emily looked confused. What? No. Why would he? Because 2 years ago, when you first moved in, I installed a security system. Not the one he knows about, the one on the front gate. A different one, hidden. Her eyes widened. Where? Living room, kitchen, master bedroom, home office. All motion activated, all cloud-based. I can access them from anywhere. But that means... She stopped, understanding dawning. That means I have footage. Of everything. 2 years worth. Oh my God. She sat down heavily on the sofa. Mom, if he finds out, if he knows you were recording, it doesn't matter what he knows. What matters is what I can prove. I pulled out my phone, opening the security app I'd barely looked at in months. The feeds were still active, still recording. I scrolled back through time, and there it was. Emily's life in fast forward. The gradual change from confident businesswoman to broken servant. Marcus's escalating control. Arguments. Thrown objects. Emily flinching. Emily crying. Emily on her knees. Evidence. I need you to trust me, I said. Can you do that? She looked at me, and for the first time since I'd arrived, I saw a spark of something other than fear. What are you going to do? What I should have done 2 years ago. I'm going to get you out of here, and I'm going to make sure Marcus Harrington never hurts you again. I made 3 calls. The first was to David Park. I need a family law attorney. The best in San Francisco. Someone who handles complex financial cases and domestic abuse, and I need them tonight. The second was to Detective Maria Gonzalez, who I'd worked with for years when I was on the bench. "Maria, I need a favor. I need you to trust me, and I need you to be discreet." The third was to my cardiologist in Seattle. "Dr. Kim, I need you to fax my medical records to this address. Yes, all of them, including the notes about reduced stress requirements and mandatory family support for recovery." Emily watched me make the calls, her expression shifting from confusion to hope to something like awe. "What are you doing?" she asked when I hung up. "Building a case." I smiled at her, and it felt like the first real smile I'd managed in weeks. "You're not the only one who's good at strategy, sweetheart." 20 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find David Park, a sharp-dressed woman in her 40s, and Detective Gonzalez in plain clothes. "Sarah," David said, hugging me quickly. "This is Jennifer Wu, best family attorney in the city, and you know Maria." I did. Maria had worked domestic violence cases for 20 years. She knew what to look for, how to handle it. "Where is he?" Maria asked quietly. "Upstairs office. Emily, can you show Jennifer to the kitchen?" I need to talk to Detective Gonzalez alone for a moment. When they were gone, I pulled out my phone and showed Maria the footage. She watched in silence, her jaw tightening with each clip. The thrown glass, the grabbed arm, the screaming match where Marcus backed Emily into a corner. The night he'd locked her in the bedroom and taken her phone. "How long have you had this?" she asked. 2 years. It's all time-stamped, cloud-verified, admissible. You know, recording without consent is tricky in California. It's my daughter's house. My name is on the original security installation documents from when she first moved in. Before Marcus. The system was disclosed in the homeowner's insurance policy. Maria smiled grimly. Smart judge. Retired judge. Still smart. Jennifer Wu came back into the room with Emily. "Mrs. Chen, with your permission, I'd like to document Emily's injuries and take her statement. David mentioned there might be financial coercion as well." "Asset transfer under duress," I confirmed. "Property deed, business assets, bank accounts, all transferred to Marcus within 6 months of marriage. Do you have the original documents?" "I have copies of everything. My father's will, the property transfer to Emily at 25, the pre-wedding asset verification, everything." Jennifer's smile was sharp. "Then we have options, good ones." We spent the next 2 hours in the kitchen. Jennifer documented everything: Emily's bruises, her phone records, the controlling apps, the financial transfers. She took photographs, recorded testimony, built a timeline. David worked the legal angles, researching California law on fraudulent transfers and financial abuse. Maria coordinated with her department, preparing for what came next. And upstairs, Marcus worked in his office, oblivious. His investor dinner was in 3 hours. He probably thought we'd all leave before then, that I'd take my concerns and go back to Seattle, that Emily would smile and serve canapés and play the supportive wife. He was wrong. At 6 o'clock, exactly when the caterers were due to arrive, Maria went upstairs. I stayed with Emily in the kitchen, holding her hand while we listened to the sounds above. Muffled voices, a sharp exclamation, footsteps. Marcus appeared at the kitchen door with Maria behind him. His face was red, his expression furious. "This is harassment," he said. "I haven't done anything wrong. Emily, tell them." Emily looked at him, and I saw something change in her eyes. The fear was still there, but underneath it was steel. Her grandfather's steel, her mother's steel. "No," she said quietly. "What?" "No. I won't tell them that, because it's not true. You're being ridiculous. Your mother has filled your head with—" "Detective Gonzalez," I interrupted. "Would you like to see the security footage now?" Marcus went very still. "What security footage?" "The system I installed 2 years ago, before the wedding. The one in your wife's house that you didn't know about." I watched the blood drain from his face as I pulled up the app on my phone, turned the screen toward him. His own image stared back. Marcus grabbing Emily's arm, Marcus shoving her against a wall, Marcus screaming inches from her face while she cowered. You can't use that, he said, but his voice was shaking. That's illegal recording. It's inadmissible. Actually, Jennifer Wu said, stepping forward, it's entirely admissible. The house is in Emily's name. The security system was disclosed and documented, and you had no reasonable expectation of privacy in shared marital spaces. But we can discuss that with your attorney. I want you all out of my house. Your house? Jennifer smiled. Let's talk about that. You had Emily sign transfer documents 6 months ago, correct? Documents that gave you full ownership of a property that was explicitly designated as her separate asset in a premarital trust? That's called fraudulent transfer, Mr. Harrington. And in California, when it's done through coercion or duress, it's voidable. I didn't coerce anyone. Emily wanted to keep you from hurting her, Maria said flatly. We have 2 years of documented abuse, Mr. Harrington. Physical, emotional, financial. We have medical records of injuries Emily explained away as accidents. We have testimony from neighbors who heard arguments, and we have video evidence of domestic violence. Those investors, I added quietly, the ones coming for dinner tonight? Detective Gonzalez has already contacted them. Explained that the event is canceled due to an ongoing investigation. They've been very understanding. Marcus's carefully controlled facade cracked. You can't do this. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I have lawyers. I have connections. You have the right to remain silent, Maria said, and I saw the handcuffs come out. Mr. Harrington, you're being detained for investigation of domestic violence and fraud. You can call your lawyer from the station. He tried to protest, tried to argue, but Maria was professional and thorough. Within 10 minutes, he was in the back of an unmarked car, and my daughter's house was quiet again. Emily stood in the kitchen, shaking. I put my arms around her and felt her collapse against me, 2 years of tension finally releasing. It's over, I whispered. He's gone. What happens now? She asked. Jennifer Wu answered. Now we file for emergency protective orders. We file to void the property transfers. We file for divorce on grounds of abuse and fraud. And we make sure Marcus Harrington never gets close to you again. But his company, his investors, they'll want to distance themselves from a domestic abuser, Jennifer said firmly. Tech companies can't afford that PR. Trust me, once this gets out, Marcus's investors will run. David nodded. And we'll make sure your business assets are recovered. The client list he took, the contracts, the intellectual property, all of it. I can help with that too, I said. I still have connections, judges, lawyers, business leaders. We're going to rebuild your life, sweetheart. Better than it was. Emily looked around the kitchen, the house that had been her prison. I don't know if I can stay here. You don't have to decide now, I said. Tonight, we're going to a hotel. Tomorrow, we'll figure out next steps. But this house is yours. It will always be yours. And no one can take it away again. She nodded, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. 2 years of abuse doesn't disappear in one night, no matter how satisfying the ending. Come on, I said gently. Let's pack you a bag, just enough for a few days. We went upstairs to her bedroom, and I helped her choose clothes. While she packed, I looked around the room that used to be hers. The art on the walls was different, masculine and stark. The books on the shelf were business titles, nothing personal. It was like someone had erased my daughter and replaced her with a prop. Mom, Emily said quietly, why did you really install those cameras? I sat down on the bed. Because I'm a judge. Because I've seen what happens when people think no one's watching. Because I wanted you to be safe, and I didn't trust that the world would keep you that way. You didn't trust Marcus. I didn't know Marcus. But I knew men like him. Successful, charming, used to getting what they want. And I knew you were young and brilliant and had just inherited millions of dollars. You thought he was after my money. I thought he might be. I hoped I was wrong. I took her hand. I'm sorry I wasn't wrong. You saved me, she said simply. You saw the truth when I couldn't, when I was so deep in it that I thought it was normal. That's how abuse works, sweetheart. It starts small. a comment here, a criticism there. By the time you realize what's happening, you're so isolated and controlled that you can't see a way out. How did you know? How did you know something was wrong? You stopped calling. And my daughter, the real Emily, would never stop calling her mother for 3 weeks straight, unless something was very, very wrong. She started crying again, and I held her while she let out 2 years of pain and fear and isolation. This wasn't a Hollywood ending where everything was fixed with one dramatic confrontation. This was real life, where healing would take time and therapy and work. But it was a beginning. We checked into the Fairmont, and I ordered room service while Emily took the longest shower of her life. When she came out, wrapped in the hotel's plush robe, she looked younger somehow, softer, more like the daughter I remembered. "I haven't eaten anything I wanted in 6 months," she said, looking at the menu. Marcus controlled every meal, said I needed to stay fit for his events. "Then order everything," I said. "We'll make it a feast." She did. We ordered steaks and pasta and dessert and wine, and we sat on the hotel room floor eating like teenagers at a sleepover. Emily told me everything. How Marcus had slowly isolated her from friends, how he'd convinced her that her business was failing when it was actually profitable, how he'd made her feel crazy for having concerns. "There was one moment," she said, "about a year ago, where I almost left. I packed a bag. I made it to the door. But he cried, actual tears, said he was under so much stress, that he didn't mean to be harsh, that he loved me so much it made him crazy. And I stayed." "A lot of women stay," I said gently. "It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human." "I'm so angry," she whispered. "At him, at myself, at the situation. I had everything. My business, my house, my life. And I let him take it." "You didn't let him do anything. He systematically dismantled your independence. That's what abusers do. They're good at it. How do I get it back? Not the business or the money. Me. How do I get myself back?" I thought about that. One day at a time, one choice at a time, starting with choosing to leave, which you did. Because you came. Because you were ready. I just gave you an option you didn't think you had. She was quiet for a moment. "Those cameras. You're going to take them out now, right?" I smiled. "Absolutely. First thing tomorrow. They did their job." "No," she said slowly. "I mean, yes, take them out of the bedroom and bathroom. But the living room, the office, the public spaces, maybe keep those. I think I'd feel safer knowing there's evidence if," she trailed off. "If anyone ever tries to hurt you again." She nodded. "Then we'll keep them. Your house, your choice, always." We stayed at the Fairmont for a week while Jennifer Wu worked her magic. The restraining order was granted, the property transfer was voided. Marcus's investors started distancing themselves from him when the domestic violence investigation went public. His company's Series C funding fell through. His perfect life began to crack. Meanwhile, Emily started rebuilding. She met with a therapist who specialized in domestic abuse recovery. She contacted her old clients, the ones Marcus had told her were impossible to work with. They were thrilled to hear from her. She started running again, something she'd loved before Marcus told her it was a waste of time. And slowly, I watched my daughter come back to life. A month later, we stood in the house together. I'd had it deep cleaned, had Marcus's furniture removed, had Emily's old pieces brought out of storage. We opened all the curtains, letting light flood in for the first time in 2 years. "It feels different," Emily said, looking around. "It is different. It's yours again." She walked to the window, looking out at the Golden Gate Bridge. "I want to sell it." I was surprised. "Sell it? Emily, this is worth millions. It's your security." "I know. And I'll use that money to start fresh. New office space for my business, a place that doesn't have his fingerprints all over it, somewhere I can build something new." She turned to me. "Grandpa gave me this house to give me independence. I'm going to honor that by using it to truly be independent." I understood. Sometimes freedom means letting go of what hurt you, even if it's valuable. "Then we'll sell it," I said, "and you'll build something amazing." She smiled, and it was real this time, all the way to her eyes. 6 months later, I sat in the front row of a small conference center in downtown San Francisco. Emily was on stage, presenting to a room full of marketing professionals. She was launching her new firm, Chen Analytics, and the energy in the room was electric. She'd grown her hair back out, colored it auburn like she'd always wanted. She wore a power suit in emerald green, her confidence radiating. When she spoke, her voice was strong, clear, certain. This was my daughter, not the broken woman scrubbing floors, not the scared girl who thought she deserved abuse. This was Emily Chen, entrepreneur, survivor, force of nature. After the presentation, she found me in the crowd. "Well, what did you think?" "I think you're going to change the world," I said honestly. "I'm going to try." She hugged me tight. "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me, for knowing something was wrong even when I couldn't admit it." "That's what mothers do," I said. "We know, even when we're not supposed to." "Those 3 Sunday calls I missed," she said quietly. "That was intentional. I couldn't face you anymore, couldn't pretend everything was fine. But I knew if I kept avoiding you, you'd come looking. You called for help without calling for help." Something like that. She smiled. Marcus was right about one thing. We did have a great partnership. Just not the one he thought. "You and me, Mom. We're the great team. Always have been, sweetheart." As we left the conference center together, my phone buzzed. A news alert. Tech entrepreneur Marcus Harrington sentenced to 3 years for domestic violence and fraud. I showed Emily the screen. She read it, nodded once, and then deleted the notification. "That's the last time I'm going to check on him," she said. "From now on, I'm only looking forward." Where to first? Dinner. A real one, at that place I loved before I got married. The one Marcus said was too casual for a woman of my status. I laughed. "Sounds perfect." We walked through San Francisco in the early evening light, my daughter and I, both of us older and wiser and scarred in different ways, but we were walking forward, and we were walking together, and sometimes that's the only victory that matters. The house sold for $7 million. Emily used it to fund her new company, to hire back her old team, to rent office space with windows that couldn't be covered. She donated a portion to a domestic violence shelter. She started sleeping through the night. And every Sunday, without fail, we had our video call, sometimes from Seattle and San Francisco, sometimes from the same coffee shop, sitting across from each other but still on camera, just because it made us both smile. Those missed calls had saved her life, and my paranoid judge instincts had given her the evidence she needed to reclaim it. Some people might call the cameras an invasion of privacy. I called them insurance. And in the end, they were the difference between my daughter spending another 2 years in hell and getting her life back. That's not paranoia. That's love with a backup plan. And if I could go back and do it all again, I wouldn't change a single thing.